Okay, welcome everyone to our Thursday evening meditation and the reading. We have a difficult reading today, but interesting one. So before we begin, we will uh, do some meditation. I ask you to come to a very resting position. And you may close your eyes gently and bring a smile to your lips. As the sound disappears, transcend any worries from this day. Yeah. I have one more friend coming. So gently breathe in, breathe out. Notice fresh air going in and out. And you are aware here and now as you breathe in and breathe out. Notice also your shoulders moving along with each breath. Keep your back straight. Recognize any tension, any tightness, and release and relax. Return to your breathing. Make more space in your heart for tranquility. When seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, physical sensations slowly disappear, thinking can get active. Let it be, and don't get caught up with any stream of thoughts. They come and go without you asking, without you doing it. Thinking also will slowly disappear as you stay focused on your in-breath and out-breath. Take delight in the activity of observing your breath. However subtle your breath becomes, you are aware of. Let the natural rhythm of your breath be revealed to your awareness. Without reacting, you are only observing. Things arise and then they disappear without you doing it. Sounds, visuals, sensations, they come and they go away. As we come to the end of this meditation, please take a deep breath in and bring your shoulders all the way up and drop your shoulders as you breathe out. Please come out of your meditation and stretch. We have a little long reading today. Let's see how much we can cover. No, this is not it. Um, some copies are here, but I don't think we have enough copies for everyone. But listen to me as I read, okay? This is from uh, Concept and Reality, a book by a Sri Lankan monk. He was an assistant professor in the university where I studied and taught, and Bante Samita studied and taught there as well. And he then became a forest monk and mostly lived in seclusion in Sri Lanka. And he wrote this book and he gave a series of talks on Nibbana. And these talks are famous as Nibbana talks. And he taught Pali language, so he is well versed in Pali. And when we read, you will hear or you will come across many Pali words, and I think Lee and I can help with that. And what we are trying to get at is somewhere in page 6, we find something um, enlightening about what he's discussing here. He's talking about mental proliferations in this book, Concept and Reality. And what he's ultimately getting at through this initial discussion is how a subject, a person, applies to the process of our thinking. And what is the process before that? So, keeping that in mind, we will read because Thursdays is about reading and meditation. So let us begin reading, and I invite you all to join as we read and also maybe stop in places that are interesting, or maybe we read everything and then discuss. Maybe we will read everything, and please uh, pay close attention to what I read, and let me also share the screen so the Zoom participants know what we are doing. So, Papancha and Papancha Sanya Sankha. Papancha, a key word in the Sutta terminology. The term Papancha, as it occurs in the Pali Canon, has presented considerable difficulty of interpretation. Attempts at its definition by the commentators as well as by the present-day scholars have given rise to divergent conclusions. It is, however, generally agreed that the determination of its significance is fundamental to a proper understanding of the philosophy of early Buddhism. In canonical passages, the term appears in a variety of forms and associations, sometimes as a verb or a verbal derivative. Papancheti, papancha, papanchayanata, papanchita, and sometimes as part of a compound. Papancha sanya, papancha sankha, papancha sanya sankha, papancha sanya sankha, samudacharana panyati, papancha sankha pahana, papancha upasama, papancha nirodha, chinna papancha, papanchara rama, papancharati. Its antonym too is seen to occur even beside in its certain context. Nippapancha, Nippapancha pada, Nippapancha patha, Nippapancha rama, Nippapancharati, Appapanchang. This variety of usage, on the one hand, greatly facilitates our quest for a definition, while on the other, it imposes an exacting test of validity for whatever definition we venture to offer. If we collate the different contexts in which some references to Papancha has been made, one of our first impressions would be the prominence it enjoys in a good number of them. When a list of terms relating to a common topic is set out in the suttas, one often finds that the most important among them is either placed first or else is counted last. Now the term papancha is in fact enumerated last in as many as 7 such contexts. So it is important. If the logic of arrangement alone is deemed insufficient, a deeper analysis of the contexts themselves will provide abundant proof of the fundamental significance of Papancha. The Sakka Panha, Digha Nikaya, Madhupindika, Majjhima Nikaya, and Kalaha Vivada, Sutta Nipata, or Sanyutta Nikaya suttas, for instance, trace the manifold conflict both in the individual as well as in the society to the question of Papancha. It is also significant that at Anguttara Nikaya 4, 229, the Buddha himself adds the eighth Mahapurisa Vitaka, thought of a great man, to Anuruddha 7, and it concerns Papancha. So here's the Buddha saying, well done, Anuruddha. Well, have you pondered over the 7 thoughts of a great man? This is to say, this Dhamma is for one who wants little, not for one who wants much. That is one. For the contented, not for the discontented. For the secluded, not for one who is fond of society. For the energetic, not for the lazy. For one who has set up mindfulness, not for the laggard therein. For the composed, not for the flustered. For the wise, not for the unwise. But Anuruddha, do you also ponder over this eighth thought of a great man, to wit, this Dhamma is for one who likes and delights in ni-Papancha, not for one who likes and delights in Papancha. Ni-Papancha, Ni-Papancharama, okay, Ni-Papancharam Ramasayang Dhammo, Ni-Papancha Ratino, Nayang Dhammo Papancharamasa Papancha Ratino. The above series of 8 Mahapurisa Vitakas seem to follow an ascending order in point of importance. This fact, coupled with the reference to Papancha in the concluding stanza of the sutta, provides a sure index to the high degree of importance attached to this particular term. hence the nature of its significance must now be determined. Papancha and sense perception. The context in which the term is located are, on the whole, psychological in their import. The Madhupindika Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 109, points to the fact that Papancha is essentially connected with the process of sense perception, and so also does the Kalaha Vivada Sutta, when it emphatically states that Papancha Sankha have their origin in sense perception. Sanya Nidanahi Papancha Sankha. The following formula of sense perception occurring in the Madhupindika Sutta may, however, be regarded as the locus classicus, as it affords us a clearer insight into the problem of Papancha. චක්කුංචාවසෝ පටිච්ච රූපේච උප්පජ්ජති චක්කු විඤ්ඤාණං තින්නම් සංගති පස්සෝ පස්සපච්චයා වේදනා යං වේදේති තං සංජානාති යං සංජානාති තං විතක්කේති යං විතක්කේති තං පපංචේති යං පපංචේති තතෝ නිදානං පුරිසං පපංච සංඥා සංඛා සමුදා චරන්ති අතීතානාගත පච්චුප්පන්නේසු චක්කු විඤ්ඤේයේසු රූපේසු. And then it goes on to say, Sotan chavaso paticca saddecha, Ghanan chavaso paticca gandhecha, Jivhan chavaso paticca rasecha, Kayan chavaso paticca pottabbecha, Manan chavaso paticca dhammecha, Mano vinya yesu dhammesu. This is from the Honeyball Sutta, Madhupindika Sutta. Let's read the translation. Visual consciousness, brethren, arises because of eye and material shapes. The meeting of the three is sensory impingement. Because of sensory impingement arises feelings. What one feels, one perceives. What one perceives, one reasons about. What one reasons about, one turns into papancha, papancheti. What one turns into papancha, due to that, Papancha Sanya Sankha assail him in regard to material shapes cognizable by the eye, belonging to the past, the future, and the present. And brethren, auditory consciousness arises because of ear and sounds. Olfactory consciousness arises because of nose and smell. Gustatory consciousness arises because of tongue and taste. Bodily consciousness arises because of body and touches. Mental consciousness arises because of mind and mental objects belonging to the past, the future, and the present. This passage indicates that papancha signifies the final stage in the process of sense cognition. The term definitely concerns the grosser conceptual aspect of the process, since it is a consequent to vitakka, reasoning, which presupposes language. Hence, we should determine how papancha differs from Marx's development on vitakka, the reasoning out. The etymology of the word would help us at this point, being derived from the root from the prefix pra and the root panch. It conveys such meanings as spreading out. So these are meanings of papancha: spreading out, expansion, diffusion, and manifoldness. It's also translated as mental proliferations. The tendency towards proliferation in the realm of concepts may be described in any one of those terms, and this is probably the primary meaning of papancha. Thus, while vitakka denotes the onset or initial application of thought, papancha may refer to the consequent prolificity in ideation. One might object, however, that the word vichara, so often found in the suttas, would have amply conveyed this meaning. It is therefore necessary to distinguish between vichara and papancha as well. Vichara though it denotes the discursive aspect of the intellect, has the finer sense of investigation and deliberation. It follows faithfully in the wake of Vitaka and seeks to sustain it. Hence it is that vichara hardly occurs by itself and is often found juxtaposed with vitaka as vitaka vichara. Papancha, on the other hand, is a more comprehensive term hinting at the tendency of the worldling's imagination to break loose and run riot. If vichara at least relatively denotes cosmos in the mental realm, papancha seems to signify chaos. This, of course, does not preclude the possibility that what often passes for vichara, reasoning out, might turn out to be papancha when viewed from a higher standpoint. In any case, the expansion or diffusion of thought as envisaged by papancha is one that tends to obscure the true state of affairs, inasmuch as it is an unwarranted deviation giving rise to obsession. This particular nuance in the meaning of the term becomes obvious when papancha is used to denote verbosity or circumlocution. In fact, it is probably this latter sense found in common usage that has assumed a philosophical dimension with its transference from the verbal to the mental sphere. As we have already mentioned, conceptual activity presupposes language, so much so that thought itself may be regarded as a form of sub-vocal speech. The above transference, therefore, is quite inappropriate. This tentative definition of papancha provides the key to the other intriguing term papancha sanya sanka in view of the close relationship between papancha and the linguistic medium. It appears that sankha with the prefix sang with the root kya together to call may be rendered by such terms as concept, reckoning, designation, or linguistic convention. Hence, papancha sanya sankha can mean concepts, reckonings, designation, or linguistic conventions characterized by the prolific conceptualizing tendency of the mind. Equipped with these definitions, we may now examine the Madhupindika formula of sense perception in detail. It begins on an impersonal note, reminiscent of the fact of dependent arising, paticca samuppada. Chakkun chauso paticca rupe uppajjati chakku viññānam tinnan sanghati passo passapaccaya vedana. Because of eye and material objects, O brethren, arises visual consciousness. The meeting of the three is sensory impingement. Because of sensory impingement arises feeling. The impersonal note, now pay attention here. The impersonal note is sustained only up to the point of feeling, Vedana. The formula now takes a personal ending suggestive of a deliberate activity, someone doing it at this moment, not happening. Yang vedeti, what one feels, tang sanjanati, one perceives. Yang sanjanati, what one perceives, tang vitakketi, one reasons about. There is a person here. Yang vitakketi tam papancheti, what one reasons about, one proliferates conceptually. There the person is arisen, not the process anymore. So this is where we find the self doing things. And the last bit we read here is the deliberate activity implied by the third person verb is seen to stop at papancheti. Now comes the most interesting stage of the process of cognition. Apparently, it is no longer a mere contingent process, nor is it an activity deliberately directed, but an inexorable subjection to an objective order of things. At this final stage of sense perception, he who has hitherto been the subject now becomes the hapless object. Okay, maybe I'll read just the next two passages. Yang papancheti tato nidanang purisang papancha sanya sankha samuda charanti atita nagata pachupannesu chakku vinyayesu rupesu. What one proliferates conceptually due to that, concepts characterized by the prolific tendency assail him in regard to material shapes cognizable by the eye, belonging to the past, the future, and the present. So here we've come to the most interesting explanation he gave so far, that in the process of us experiencing the world, we don't think about a person, but without us knowing, we imply a person in the process. Toward the end, we proliferate and we also bring our past to it. The present is involved, and the future that does not exist also is involved in that process. And now we are caught up in a net of things with no escape. And then we argue with other people, and then we get angry with other people, and then we want to be sure that our voice is heard, and we get into a mess. What did you think about this read? In this Honey Bowl Sutta, the Buddha gives a very brief teaching, and then he gets up and leaves. And I think Sariputta has to explain what the Buddha taught. So toward the end, the Buddha says, by what he teaches, all the quarreling ends in the world. Based on this understanding, all the fights, all the deliberate involvement with any um arguments ends. When you think this way, when you understand the mechanism behind this fighting and argument, it all ends there. Anything else? Any questions? Any comments?
Well, is the point being that one terminates the process before conceptual fixation arises?
We cannot terminate.
Uh-huh.
It's again craving there, wanting to terminate it. It does not terminate like that. All we need to do is to just understand that this is actually what is happening.
Yeah.
When we understand that this is what is happening with our wisdom, not by just hearing it or reading it, with slowing down and seeing with the eye of wisdom, with not the eyes to see, then we understand that, oh, I don't have to react so much.
Yeah.
So we cannot stop anywhere here. All these things have to happen. Whether you are enlightened or not, these things do happen. For wholesome or unwholesome, pure or impure states of the mind. The more we understand the process, I think the more we want to stick with the purity of this pure side of the mind, which also is a way of proliferation, but with no involvement of greed, hatred, and delusion.
Yeah.
Thereby, your heart is resting in a uh, very pure state, and you maintain it that way with the understanding that this is actually what happens, whether it is merits or demerits, wholesome or unwholesome, bad or good, it doesn't matter, and you have just equanimity toward all these things.
I say that because I'm reminded of the Bahira Sutta, where Buddha says that in the seeing, only the seeing, and the
Yeah.
hearing, only.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and is that recognition what terminates the proliferation?
In that, only the hearing, only the seen, only the cognized process, you don't see an individual doing it. You don't see a self doing it. That's it.
Yeah,
So the process happens. You see, you hear, you think.
right.
The process happens, but
Yeah.
you do understand that it is not done by a permanent, everlasting self.
Yeah.
You
So-
can say it in a conventional way, you can say it is me, but that is
Right.
only conventional truth.
Right, right, right. Yeah,
The absolute truth is that it is just a process.
that it is what you said just said.
It is just a process,
Process. Yeah,
no
Right.
doer here.
yeah,
You see, if we visit the passage closely again, let's revisit it. You know what dependent on the I and the objects, I consciousness arises.
right.
Meeting of the three is I consciousness.
Yeah,
So far, it is just objects, things meeting. You see,
yeah,
and then um, what happens? Uh, then one starts to think.
yeah,
Then what one thinks? There is a person, someone doing the thinking part.
right.
And before that, there is a feeling process. Yang vedeti tan sanjanati. What one feels, one cognizes. And then what one cognizes, one thinks about.
Yeah,
So in that, one thinks about is the subject that we think exists. But in the actual process of it doesn't exist. It's just dependently arisen without you doing it. It's like it thinking, not you thinking.
yeah,
One of my professors, Professor Gananatha Besekar, he lived in Cambridge for a brief while, and he writes books, and sometimes he comes to these places where he just cannot progress anymore. And then he takes a walk. And then he says he doesn't think about it, but then there's this thing called it thinking. Somehow he comes to a conclusion without him doing anything. It just occurs to him.
right.
So I remember him saying the it thinking part, and this is like that. Yeah.
Well, just describe five styles. Right?
The
Five styles.
yeah, five skandhas. I may have mentioned just briefly some aspect of it. The form skandha, feelings skandha,
Yeah.
and then perceptions skandha, and formations skandha, and consciousness skandha. So actually, there is also this same process happening, and they are just mere aggregates,
Yeah,
skandhas,
yeah, yeah.
nothing more, nothing less. It's so liberating to take them that way and not personally.
But the reason we need to see them is because we take them to be ourselves, right?
Yes.
But if you see how it's broken down into its components, you don't find the self.
No.
No.
You see so the Buddha says, take this physical I as yourself. It is okay, but never take your mind as the self. Because the physical I will die in whatever number of years. At least then you will stop saying that that was yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The the mind that continuously changes, you can never say it is a self.
Yeah.
Continuously it arises and vanishes.
Right. This is very disturbing to people who believe in their identity.
That's true.
Yeah.
This is why it doesn't always work when you talk like this. This is why when we learn Dhamma, we don't discuss it outside the places where it should be discussed. You will be labeled as a crazy person.
Yeah, yeah.
This is why the Buddha says, talk like a normal person. Use the conventional language when you are talking. You cannot say the five skandhas went to bed tonight and five skandhas woke up. This will be awkward. So, yeah.
They have I believe, a psychiatric category called depersonalization,
Mm-hmm.
that a person can be afflicted,
Yeah.
depersonalized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm not sure if that psychological concept. Uh, I think it gets closer to the concept of dependently arising nature and vanishing nature as well. Things never stay permanent. Like for us to hear new things, what we already heard has to disappear. Or for us to see new things, as we are seeing continuously million times now, what we heard has to disappear, and then the mind is able to deal with all that so fast. Yeah. I'm glad we all survived this reading today.
Tough one.
It is a tough one. But we haven't started yet, but we will be reading this book in Professor Halise's class on Nirvana. So very soon. Are you in that class?
Uh, well, next.
Okay, okay. So I thought I should reread it, and this is well loved. Everybody loves this book, so I think we can continue to read it in coming Thursdays. Maybe next Thursday we will read a little bit more, and I welcome you all to join, and maybe we will discover new things. And the book is available online, Concept and Reality. It's a free PDF by Gnanananda, Katukurunde Gnanananda. I can type it for you if you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's very he has passed away 3 years ago, I think. He was very peculiar about uh, reprints about this uh, book, that he would only authorize his own library to and the organization to produce any prints of the book, because he did not want anything to be altered. He very much cared for this book. It was one of the finest books he wrote. So, and I met him 2 times in Sri Lanka before he passed away. And I asked him one time, does loving kindness lead to Nibbana? He said, nothing leads to Nibbana. Nothing leads, there is nothing when you attain Nirvana. That is what he meant. And then I asked a question about the cessation experience. Is it only the cessation of perceptions and feelings? He then said, there's also formations that experience cessation. So, formations, there are mental formations that also experience cessation. So he added that part. I think he was very confident in Dhamma, and he is such a precious gem that lived in the world, and he inspired many monks through his work and life. Okay, that'll be it. Let's share merits, and we can continue chatting after. Please join your palms together and recite with me if you know. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you for coming.